2 black dragons. Lost. Gone. But not forgotten.
Hello my fellow hunters and welcome, as today we talk about the 2 black dragons that, well, are no more. Disufiroa of Frontier and Merphistophelin of Monster Hunter Online. Rest in peace. One modelled on Elatrion, one modelled on Fatalis. They are world-destroying monsters in their own right. Both part of the first-class dangerous monster category. They are truly black dragons. And honestly, as ridiculously over the top as some of their shenanigans be, they really are badass. And hey, they have the Black Dragon Pass, which is complete monster authorization for complete shenaniganry in their moveset. Let's begin then with Frontier's representative, Disufiroa, who I'm probably pronouncing incredibly wrong, but that's okay. Known as the Frozen Seraphim Dragon, simply because it has its own element. Yes, unique literally to it, and only it, the Frozen Seraphim element. And this is something to really take hold of to start understanding this creature. It is a combination of 3 elements: fire, ice, and dragon, molded together and forged into this crystalline destruction. It wields it with absolutely apocalyptic force. A force that can be fused into weapons themselves, such that when you strike, you will actually hit with all 3 elements simultaneously. That is quite cool. But what else is quite cool is, well, the display of power that greets you whenever you begin an encounter with this legendary dragon. Of course, taking the general shape of Elatrion, it even has the kind of chest, clawy, hand bone thing, but much more vibrant, the red contrasting with the silver and the teal tips. It is definitely a striking visage created. And the battle against it, well, it is Frontier levels of ridiculousness. It summons huge pillars of ice. It can ricochet a dragon laser between them. It has tornadoes of fire and ice, and it generally just destroys everything, which is to be expected from such a close relative of Elatrion, and Elatrion himself is a walking natural disaster, causing absolutely erratic, terrifying weather wherever he roams. Now, Disufiroa has a natural enemy, an arch-rival, if you will. Shanti-en, an Amatsu-esque sky dragon that floats on the wind and is honestly really quite badass, and one of the few Frontier monsters that I genuinely wish could end up in the main series, albeit a bit modified, but the point is, he is no joke. Disufiroa, though, came out on top and reigned supreme, as expected of a monster of his stature. He inhabits then the territory of World's End, a desolate land with blood-red pools, spires of rock arcing in the distance. It appears toxic and dead, yet it certainly has a beauty to it. Facing this formidable foe under a blood moon is something not easily forgotten. Oh, and you know, the fact that meteors just generally rain down here constantly makes it a wonderful choice
for a holiday destination.
It also has another completely unique ability to it, and that is to extremely affect the temperature of the environment around it, making it essentially impossible for anything, plant or animal, to live in, well, its territory. That's why the world's end is, well, the world's end. There is very little that can challenge this monster, and should it indeed be challenged, the last thing one would ever want is to push it too far. For when its anger bubbles, so does its power. This thing is hard to put down. Its hide is, well, nigh impenetrable, and it is a raging torrent of force within it. Its horn controls and produces the ice. Its internal organs fuel its fire, and a constant battle rages within itself. Flame versus frost. The blazing heat versus the piercing cold. The sheer, the unyielding grip of ice versus the overwhelming consumption of flame. If it loses control of this balance, well, Disufiroa is always in permanent danger of snuffing out its own existence. Such is the sheer virulence of this dragon's might. And indeed, the more injured it gets, the more pushed it gets, the angrier it gets, the harder it gets to maintain that all-important self-preserving equilibrium. Look, some of you might already be thinking this, but this is essentially Disufiroa. And that is very, very cool. And indeed, when you fight hard enough, when you grit your teeth and persevere, when you push past the boundaries of a hunter and slay this dragon, well, you don't actually slay this dragon. You simply have him slay himself. Eventually, he does lose control and becomes a statue, trapped and consumed by his own frozen Seraphim element. And that really is just awesome. So, that is Disufiroa, a really quite interesting monster. I love the triple combo element, I love the half and half nature, and yes, it's Frontier, so his attacks are unbelievably over the top, ludicrous, what the hell, and his design is perhaps a little bit too much, a bit too spiky, but you know what? I do really like him, hence me wanting to talk about him. He really has a kind of alien air to him, and he's something that I could see honestly being repurposed in quite a cool way for the main series. Obviously toned down, but this agonizing balance of flame and frost being pelted at you as the dragon not only combats the hunters, but his own biology could be turned into a really meaningful encounter. Next up then, Monster Hunter Online's own Black Dragon, its own tippy top of the food chain, we have Merphistophelin, and he is, I mean, look at him, essentially a walking skeleton. He very much takes the frame of Fatalis, though ironically he is much more Elatrion in how he do. On the surface there is an element of you versus the dragon she tells you not to worry about twixt him and Elatrion, but there is so much more to this badass skeletal force. So as I said, it bears the general structure of Fatalis and is indeed supposedly related to him. Now, on first glance, there's not much to this guy. He has a spattering of physical attacks. His wings have no membrane. He looks decrepit, and while, yes, there is an intimidation there, he certainly does not have the kind of threat factor emanating off him you'd expect from a black dragon. But his secret lies in his chest. The core of energy swirling there is his ultimate weapon. You see, that is capable of absorbing elemental attacks. And is not only capable of absorbing them, it is capable of transforming the dragon itself into an embodiment of each element, as Rathalos unfortunately found out. Now, there is the base Merphistophelin. He has a variant too, but in the base one he has two states, fire mode and dragon mode. It is in these modes he truly becomes unmatchedly dangerous. He gains access to his elemental attacks augmented by the state, and he will not hesitate to unleash the full force of that element on the unsuspecting and now, well, very dead hunter. Just the transition into these states is already to be feared. It is a blast wave of pure element that echoes far and wide and shakes the very air with crackling power. He is found in the rock-flowing field, which essentially is just one hell of a volcano, one hell of a volcanic region, and the absolute authority of Merphistophelin. Anything that comes near gets attacked with extreme prejudice, and it will not stop until it has killed it or driven it out. Its territory is its, and it reigns supreme. Eventually, he will enrage and turn things up to 11 and offer one hell of a battle. However, there is further to go. For there is Elemental Merphistophelin, a variant that truly is the master of all elements.
Ha ha! I made this! You made this? I made this.
He now gains an ice mode, a water mode, a thunder mode, can apply essentially every blight, every ailment, and generally is just ridiculous. Known as the Imperial 5 Phases Baron Disaster Dragon. That's a mouthful, isn't it? That's the Imperial 5 Phases Baron Disaster Dragon! That is the most anime move shout-out I have ever heard in my life. Also known as the Devil, the End of Days, and the Destroyer. Now, what I love about how he fights is how efficiently his moveset is designed. He doesn't have a set of moves in fire mode, he doesn't have a set of moves in thunder mode, he doesn't have a set of moves in ice mode, and so on. What he has is just a set of moves that is augmented by the element. So if you look at something like Elatrion, he has different attacks using fire than he has using lightning, different animations, different patterns, different spreads. Where with Merphistophelin, he'll do the same attack in every mode, but it will be different because of the mode. For example, an attack where he crawls along the ground towards you as a kind of charge. In water, that will soak the ground as he goes, making it slippy and unstable to stand on. In thunder, it will electrify the ground as he goes, creating a paralysis field that if you walk into, you get paralyzed. Good old paralyzed. Totally a word. Paralyzed. So, the exact same attack, but a different result. So it's a really fun learning experience, not learning loads of different animations to dodge and attacks to remember, but you're learning how each of his base moves is augmented by each element. And I think that's very, very neat. In any case, he has his 5 forms, and they really are all a spectacle to behold. He looks incredible, charged with each, and seeing the wing membranes actually appear made out of the element in question as the rest of his body pulses and his chest core goes crazy. Honestly, I really do love this guy. I think the design being able to fly in base form is a bit silly. I'd love it if he could only fly when when he does get his wing membranes from the element, that would look a lot better. I would love for his base form to be slow and decrepit and kind of useless until you actually cause him to burst into life. And I wish you could influence what state he goes into by using the correct elemental weapon and feeding the core and actually having that be part of the fight. But in any case, he creates tornadoes of element, his beams are absolutely ferocious, and he's just an incredibly satisfying, powerful experience. That is your Merphistophelin, and he is gone now along with Disufiroa. Both games shut down, both monsters lost, and that is a shame. I think there's a lot you could do with both. I think there's a lot you could do with a lot of monsters from both games, and especially now we'll essentially never see them again. Maybe it's time to perhaps bring them in and retool them. To that end then, guys, the question I would love to ask you is, if you had to choose one of these black dragons to join the main series to become a canon monster, which one would it be? I think it's quite a hard decision because I prefer Merphistophelin, but Alatreon already has that all-elemental role, which would lead to Disufiroa, but at the same time, you know, I think I'd have to, if pushed, lean Merphistophelin too, just because seeing him actually fight with Alatreon would be very entertaining. He also is one of the most overconfident, cocky dragons, and I think that's a really cool little personality trait that he's got. Elder dragons in general are very proud and holier than thou, but every time he gets into a fight with another monster, he doesn't take it seriously at all. Like, he just completely toys with them, plays with them, and gets rid of them, and this causes a lot of monsters to be displaced from their natural environment and then end up rampaging through a local settlement. So yeah, not really too great. It also doubles up the fact that he can go in the element, means he can live in any environment, just needs to be the correct element to thrive there. So wherever he goes, he is a huge problem. So the End of Days might be quite the accurate title. In any case, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I will see you soon. Please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. It really is what keeps us going. Goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.